Hi diving folks, welcome to my channel. My name is Ben, and in this video I'm gonna compare the usual double ender that comes at around 12 euros to a cheap version from China, and if it's worthy to choose the expensive one over the cheap one. Please subscribe to my channel and never miss a video again. As a technical and cave diver as well as an instructor, I'm using these guys basically all the time. I use double enders to temporarily clip off lights, to clip off camera equipment. I even use them to hang up a jacket in my car, and I'm pretty sure you guys use them too, to clip off basically everything you don't want to lose, which is basically everything. When I'm teaching classes, it happens all the time that I borrow double enders to students and they never return them back. Maybe it's because they just forget to return them, they lose them, they deliberately steal them from me. Technically, it's not stealing then, but embezzlement, I guess. Anyways, for whatever reason, there's a constant drain of double enders. That's why I always have a whole bunch of them with me during classes. However, I'm always struggling with the price of these things. I know quality has its price, and I don't want to recommend getting very cheap, but losing one or two every class with teaching 10 plus classes a year, that's quite a nice amount of money that's just lost. So I thought, is there a possibility to get it a little bit cheaper? So I went to Alibaba.com, you know, that eBay for cheap Chinese copies, and tried to find them there. And I did. I ordered 50 double enders and 50 bolt snaps. See, it's not 50 anymore. I lost some of them in the meantime during classes, like always. I had to pay taxes, customs, and I ended up with a little bit less than $2 per double ender. However, people warned me about the cheap ones. They said they're not that durable, they will corrode very soon, they will jam in the worst situations and you gonna die. And as a scientist, I thought, let's use the corona crisis, when we can't go diving anyway, and put it to a test. Cheap versus expensive. So these are our test subjects. I got a standard stainless steel double ender. At least in Europe, they are sold by BTS and are available in basically every dive shop, at least dive shops that have technical divers and cave divers in mind. And you see, they say on the side 316 SS, that stands for stainless steel. So it's a high grade stainless steel double ender. The other one is the cheap Chinese one. So if I refer to the expensive one, I mean the standard one that comes at a retail price for around 10 to 12 euros, which should be a little bit more in US dollars. Please leave a comment in the comment section if these guys are more or less expensive in your country. I would be very interested in that. And if I say cheap one, I mean the Chinese one I ordered from Alibaba.com. There is nothing said on the double ender itself. Nothing about the material. However, the manufacturer told me that it's the same material, it's 316 stainless steel, it's exactly the same material the expensive ones are made of. So if you compare them side by side, they look very similar. They differ in just small details. You see the shape here is a little bit different, but it's not a big deal. Maybe theoretically this is a little bit wider, so maybe line it's more likely to get entangled. However, I think this is really just a minor thing. One thing that you can really recognize is if you compare them side by side, the expansive one here, it looks really nicely made. It's really clean cut. The cheap one, it looks a little bit more raw. It's not so precisely cut. Both work very fine. I have the impression that the expensive one has a little bit more tension on the spring, while the cheap one has a little bit less tension. But it's only something you will recognize if you compare them really side by side. And while diving, it's not a big issue. I think some people might even find it more comfortable to have less tension on the spring. It's not really low tension, so they will get closed easily and they will hold everything you want to clip off very securely, I think. But it's really almost the same. They're approximately the same size and shape, so from the outer appearance they look very similar. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the quality of Dubliners. The first test I would like to put them into is the saltwater resistancy test. For the saltwater resistancy test, what we're going to need first is some water, then we need some salt, that's just usual salt, some cups. I would like to mix some salt water. The salinity should be around 30%, which is the percentage of salt in the Dead Sea. For comparison, the Mediterranean has around 3% of salt, so 30% is tenfold the salinity of the Mediterranean. No matter where you're going for a dive, it's never getting any saltier than in the Dead Sea. For this, I want the cup filled half so that we can really see a before and after picture of the resistancy against salt water. Both manufacturers say the Dubliners are made of stainless steel. We can compare the weight of both Dubliners. The expensive one comes at around 63 grams and the cheap one is 67 grams. So the expensive one is a little bit more lightweight, but it's just about a few grams. To get a saltwater content of around 30%, we have to mix 140 grams of usual water with 60 grams of salt. So first we weigh in 60 grams of salt. A little bit more. I want to go as precise as possible. And then we add 140 grams of water up to a total amount of 200 grams of salt water, which is a little bit less than 200 milliliters because the density of salt water is a little bit higher. And you see, it's really a huge amount of salt. It's really a huge amount of salt. I have the impression that it's really hard to get this salt into solution. You see, it's not so easy to get the salt into solution, but we're almost done. That's alright, I guess. We share it between both cups. And now we put our double enders into these cups, the expensive one and the cheap one. So I put the double enders in, it's the expensive one and the cheap one, and we have it now in really high concentration salt water, which contains much more salt than most of the water you're going to be diving in. And now we let that sit for 1 week, and then we just see what happens to our double enders, and if the expensive one and the cheap one has any difference after a week. Welcome back. After 1 week saltwater testing of our double enders, and I got them out of the salt water a couple of minutes ago. I don't see any difference. They are both really high quality stainless steel. You don't see any spots. Maybe there's a very tiny spot. Maybe you cannot even see it in the camera. There's a tiny spot of something brownish that might be a little bit of rust, but maybe not. You can see on the expensive one, and the cheap one is really in perfect condition. You cannot see any differences. Both work very well, so there's no sign of corrosion. Even after 1 week in salt water of around 30%, both double enders can really be recommended for use in salt water. So, is there a quality difference? The next test should be hydrogen sulfide. Most of our cave diving fellows know that cave systems can often contain areas of hydrogen sulfide. You recognize it in a cave. If you dive through the water, sometimes it's really some milky part of the cave, and if you dive through, you very often smell this very characteristic smell of rotten eggs. Hydrogen sulfide is extremely corrosive, and very often if you leave gear for some time in a cave, maybe you leave stages behind, you leave reels behind, stuff like that. If you retrieve them, you sometimes see that your gear really gets corroded, and you really see sometimes black stains and stuff like that on the metal parts. So let's test the effect of hydrogen sulfide containing water on our double enders, the expensive one and the cheap one from China. But where to get hydrogen sulfide containing water? And now, due to the corona crisis, everything is closed, we cannot go diving, so where do we get it? Luckily, I live in an area where we have hot springs underneath the surface. So we have hot springs underneath the surface, and the water coming out of these springs has hydrogen sulfide. So let's get some hydrogen sulfide water. This is Elisenbrunnen, and underneath the surface we have hot springs. That makes the water come out here really hot, and it contains hydrogen sulfide, which in the end makes it really smell like rotten eggs. But this is exactly what we need to do our experiment. So let's get some water. And as a fun fact, especially elderly people think this has some healing powers. I wouldn't really try it. To corrode some Dubliners, it's perfect. So we have some water to corrode our Dubliners. Let's get back home, and before that, watch the B-roll. So back home, hope you guys enjoy my B-roll. If you have any questions about the color grading and the LUTs I used to make this B-roll, just leave a comment in the comment section. Now back to our Dubliners. Yeah, we have got our rotten egg smelling water full of hydrogen sulfide. I better close the bottle anyways because it's smelling and it's stinky all over the place. Well, 2 cups, our Dubliners, and I put some of the water to... Now you can see it's half and half filled, like with the salt water. We let that sit for a week, and then we can just see what the hydrogen sulfide does to our double enders and if there is any difference between both double enders. Just for information, the hydrogen sulfide content of our hot spring water is 4.4 gram per 1,000 grams. That means 4.4 gram per liter. And to be honest, I don't have any idea what the hydrogen sulfide content of real cave systems usually is. If you guys have any information about the hydrogen sulfide content of cave systems, you've been diving in, just leave a comment in the comment section. I would be really interested in the hydrogen sulfide content of the real cave. Maybe we have to redo this if the hydrogen sulfide content is much higher, but from the smell and what I experienced from my cave diving, the smell of water is almost the same like in the cave, so I bet that it's a comparable amount of hydrogen sulfide in the water. Just leave a comment, and maybe we can redo this again in a real cave maybe next year when all this corona thing is over and we can go diving again. Maybe we can just make a small video about an experiment where we really leave double enders in a hydrogen sulfide section in a cave. Welcome back after a week of hydrogen sulfide testing. I took both double enders out of the hydrogen sulfide water, and if we compare them side by side, even after a week, I cannot see any difference between both double enders. Not even a stain from the hydrogen sulfide is visible. This may be the case because the hydrogen sulfide evaporates over time, and I had the impression that the water is less stinky now, even though the cups were at least loosely closed. Maybe I should consider doing it in a real cave. Plus, in real caves, hydrogen sulfide and salt water comes together, and it is possible that both combined has an effect on the double enders. So as soon as I get to a sea cave like in Sardinia, which by the way I like very, very much, I'm gonna leave these both double enders in a hydrogen sulfide part for some days and shoot a video about that. To sum this up, both double enders are really high quality. They withstand high concentration salt water for a week, and even hydrogen sulfide leaves both double enders in good condition and they are still fully functional. So what's the difference between both double enders? To be honest, there isn't any difference. Maybe apart from the fact that the cheap one, as you can see here, wasn't so nicely cut out. For all other aspects, they seem to be very, very similar. So which one should you go for when you want to buy? The expensive one is around 12 euros, which is around 13 US dollars, while the cheap one comes for around $2. So the price speaks for the cheap one. The downside of ordering directly from China is that you have to take a minimum quantity of 50, and you have some hassle with the shipping fees, tax, customs. Customs is around 5% of the price on top, but surely depends on your location. But you should check in advance with your local administration if you would like to order some. The same applies for the taxes. You have to pay taxes if you import goods from China, depending on your country. And you always have to think about this one. The cost for shipping can mostly be disputed with the Chinese vendor, but you have to consider this. Still, the price of $2 is already included the shipment, the tax, and the customs. If you're an instructor and really need many of them, that might be worth it. If you just need 1 or 2 and you're really careful and you don't lose them, you won't probably need 50 in your whole lifetime anyway. Plus, it takes a couple of weeks to get them from China. If you need them instantly, you want definitely head to your local dive shop, support your local dealer, and buy a few for a higher price per piece. If you need many of them, and you don't want to break the bank, and you're willing to invest some time in figuring out the customs, the tax, and so on, you should definitely go and get them directly from China. In case you would like to do this, I added some information where I got the Dubliners from in the description. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel and activate notifications so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, have fun diving hopefully soon, and hope to see you again.